I never imagined my life would twist the way it did. Back then, I was just a woman in love, a woman who believed in forever. I trusted Michael with my whole heart, and when he left me for her, it felt like the ground disappeared beneath my feet. His words cut deeper than any blade could. "I found someone new," he said, like it was nothing, like the years we spent together were nothing more than wasted time. My chest burned with pain I couldn't explain, and every night I replayed the moment in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. For weeks, I could hardly breathe. My friends tried to help, but grief has a way of making you feel like you're drowning in silence. I cried into my pillow, prayed for answers, and begged God to tell me why. Why was I not enough? Why did the man I loved choose another woman instead of the home we built together? The anger, the sorrow, and the betrayal lived inside me like an unwanted tenant that refused to leave. Her name was Ashley. She was younger, flashier, the kind of woman who knew how to turn heads when she walked into a room. He flaunted her like a trophy, posting pictures, smiling as if the life we had was already erased. Seeing those images nearly destroyed me. I avoided social gatherings, ignored invitations, and shut myself inside my small apartment, as if hiding from the world could protect me from the shame. But pain changes you. Over time, the fire inside me burned differently. It stopped being a flame that consumed me and started becoming fuel. I made a choice. If Michael thought I was weak, if he believed leaving me would shatter my life forever, he was wrong. I would rebuild myself, brick by brick, until there was nothing left of the woman who begged him to stay. I enrolled in night classes, studied, harder than I ever had before, and pushed myself in ways that even surprised me. I worked 2 jobs, saved every penny, and chased promotions with a hunger born from heartbreak. The nights were long. There were moments I wanted to give up, but every time I thought of him smiling with Ashley, my determination sharpened. I wouldn't let their betrayal define my story. I had more inside me, more strength, more power, more destiny waiting to be claimed. Slowly, my career began to shift. I moved up from assistant to supervisor, from supervisor to manager, and soon I was climbing steps I once thought were unreachable. People began to respect me, trust me, and look to me for leadership. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Again. Still, I carried the scars. No matter how high I climbed, the memory of Michael walking away stayed with me. It wasn't just the heartbreak. It was the humiliation, the way my friends pitied me, the way family whispered behind my back. That pain never left. It was etched into the very foundation of who I was becoming. And though I never said it aloud, I carried a silent promise with me. One day, I would rise so high that even Michael would have no choice but to see me. He would see the woman he abandoned, and he would regret it. Time passed. Years went by. My nights of loneliness gave way to mornings of confidence. I didn't just survive, I thrived. But destiny, as cruel and beautiful as it is, had a plan I never could have predicted. One ordinary Monday morning, walking into my new office building, I saw him again. Michael. His hair had thinned, his suit wasn't as crisp, and his smile wasn't the same. He didn't notice me at first, but when his eyes met mine, I saw a flicker of shock. In that moment, I realized life had finally brought us full circle. Michael froze when he recognized me. His lips parted as if he wanted to speak, but no words came out. For the first time, the man who once left me broken looked small. I stood taller, my shoulders back, my confidence radiating like armor. I gave him a polite nod and walked past him, my heels clicking against the polished floor, each step echoing with the rhythm of my triumph. What he didn't know was that I wasn't just an employee here. I was in a position far above his. I was the new senior director, a role that placed me not only above Michael, but above his direct manager as well. The irony was almost too much to bear. The man who once told me I wasn't enough now reported indirectly to me. Life has a way of spinning its wheel, and at that moment, I felt the weight of destiny settle on my shoulders. Later that day, I sat in a meeting with the executive team, reviewing projects and strategies. Michael entered the room with a folder in hand, his eyes darting nervously when he saw me at the head of the table. He tried to avoid my gaze, but there was no hiding. My voice carried through the room as I gave instructions, my name stamped at the top of every agenda. He couldn't escape the reality. The woman he discarded was now the woman who signed off on his future. I didn't humiliate him. I didn't throw my success in his face. No, my revenge wasn't loud. It was silent, powerful, undeniable. True. Revenge is not about shouting your victory. It's about living it so fully that the other person can't ignore it. Michael shifted uncomfortably throughout the meeting, his confidence shrinking with each passing moment. Ashley wasn't there to hold his hand or shield him from the truth. This was his reality, and I was the mirror he couldn't look away from. After the meeting, he approached me cautiously. "Sarah," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of regret. "I didn't know you worked here." I looked him straight in the eyes, steady and calm. "People change. Life moves on." My words were simple, but they carried the force of every sleepless night, every tear, every ounce of strength it took to stand in front of him now. He opened his mouth as if to explain, but I raised my hand. "No need. We're not the same people we were then." I walked away, leaving him standing there with his unfinished excuses. My heart pounded, but it wasn't from pain. It was from power. For years, I dreamed of a moment like this, but standing there, I realized it wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. I had built a life far greater than the one he abandoned. I no longer needed his validation. Still, I couldn't deny the satisfaction in seeing his regret written all over his face. The days turned into weeks, and the tension in the office was palpable. Michael avoided me as much as he could, but our paths crossed often. Each time, he shrank a little more, while I stood firmer in who I had become. My colleagues respected me, executives relied on me, and employees looked to me for guidance. Michael could not escape the truth. I had risen above, and nothing could change that. But destiny wasn't done writing my story. One Friday afternoon, a decision landed on my desk. A restructuring project required reviewing every department, every employee's contribution. Among the files stacked before me was Michael's. My hand trembled as I held it, not from fear, but from the magnitude of the moment. The man who once chose another woman over me now had his career in my hands. I sat in my office long after the building had grown quiet, the city lights glowing through the window as I stared at Michael's file. His numbers weren't terrible, but they weren't outstanding either. Average. Safe. The kind of work done by someone just trying to get by, never striving to stand out. I thought about the man I once loved, the one who used to promise me the world, who used to dream big with me at our kitchen table. That man was gone, replaced by someone who had settled for mediocrity. As I flipped through the pages, I wondered if life had humbled him, if losing me had left a mark he never spoke of. But then I reminded myself I wasn't here to dig into his regrets. My responsibility was to the company, to the people who depended on strong leadership. And leadership meant making choices without letting the past blur the present. I wasn't the broken woman who once cried herself to sleep. I was the woman trusted to make decisions that shaped futures. Still, the weight of it pressed on me. Was this karma placing him in my path for judgment? Or was this life's way of showing me that I had moved beyond revenge? My pen hovered above, the evaluation sheet. I thought of Ashley, the woman he left me for. Were they still together? Did she know the man she had chosen wasn't the giant he pretended to be? Or had life shown her, too, the cracks beneath his charm? Part of me wanted to know, but I pushed the thought aside. Their story was theirs. Mine was mine. The next morning, I walked into the office with determination. I carried Michael's file under my arm, but I also carried years of healing, years of growth. My assistant knocked on my door. "The review committee is ready," she said. I nodded, rising from my chair, the file firm in my grip. When I entered the boardroom, Michael was already seated, his eyes darting nervously. He knew his department was under review. He knew his name was on the line. I took my seat at the head of the table. One by one, employees were discussed, their strengths highlighted, their weaknesses noted. When it came to Michael, the room grew still. His supervisor spoke carefully, praising his reliability, but also pointing out his lack of initiative. I listened, saying nothing, until it was my turn. All eyes turned to me. My voice was calm, measured, and deliberate. "Consistency has value," I said. "But in times of change, consistency without innovation becomes a liability." Michael's face paled. He understood what I was saying. He wasn't keeping up. He wasn't growing. The silence that followed was heavy, but I didn't falter. I had spent too many years finding my own strength to tremble now. The decision wasn't personal. It was business. Yet I knew deep down, fate had brought us here for a reason. My past had returned, not to break me again, but to remind me how far I had come. When the meeting ended, Michael lingered behind. He looked older somehow, wearier. "Sarah," he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. "I know I don't deserve it, but do you think people really get second chances?" His question hung in the air, fragile and uncertain. I studied him, seeing not the man who betrayed me, but a man caught in the wreckage of his own choices. My heart didn't ache for him anymore, but I couldn't deny the sting of irony. He wanted a second chance, the same thing I once begged. From him. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I gathered my papers, placed them neatly into my folder, and stood tall. "Second chances," I finally said, "aren't something people are given. They're something people earn." And with that, I walked away, leaving him to wrestle with the meaning of my words. The weeks that followed were heavy with tension. Michael did his work quietly, no longer the loud, confident man who once thought the world revolved around him. I noticed him staying late, lingering at his desk long after others had gone home. Maybe he was trying to prove himself, or maybe he was trying to prove something to me. Either way, it didn't change the fact that the decision on his future was in motion. One Friday evening, the company held a leadership retreat. We gathered in a conference hall filled with polished wood tables, bottled water, and glossy notebooks. I walked to the podium to speak about resilience and transformation. As I spoke, my eyes scanned the crowd. Most people listened with admiration, nodding as I shared my journey of struggle and growth, without ever naming names. But Michael sat near the back, his eyes downcast, his hands clenched together. When the session ended, people approached me, offering kind words about my speech. I thanked them, smiled, and carried myself with the grace I had fought so hard to build. Later that night, as I stepped outside into the cool air, Michael followed me. "Sarah," he called, his voice trembling. I turned. The night sky stretched. Above us, stars scattered like broken glass. "I know I hurt you," he said. "I know I don't deserve anything from you, but seeing you now, it makes me realize how wrong I was." For a moment, the wind seemed to hold its breath. I looked. At him, truly looked at him, and I saw not the man I once loved, but the shadow of who he had become. My silence pressed on him, and he continued. "Ashley left me," he admitted, his voice cracking. "She left years ago. I thought she was everything, but she wasn't. She wanted excitement, not responsibility. And when things got hard, she walked away. Just like I walked away from you." His confession cut through the night, and for the first time, I felt no anger, only pity. He had destroyed what we had, and in chasing what glittered, he lost the gold he already held. "I'm sorry," he whispered, tears glistening in his eyes. "I should have never left you." My chest rose and fell with deep breaths, but my heart didn't break this time. I had already healed. His apology wasn't a key to unlock old chains. It was a mirror showing me just how free I had become. That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything. About love, loss, betrayal, and resilience. Life had twisted in ways I never imagined, but through it all, I had found myself. Michael's. Regret didn't undo the pain, and it didn't define my worth. My story was no longer tied to his choices. It was mine alone. If you were in my shoes, standing face to face with the person who once shattered your world, would you forgive them? Or would you let them drown in their own regrets? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment and tell me what you would do. The following Monday, the boardroom was filled with the low murmur of voices as executives shuffled papers and prepared for the meeting. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, reflecting off the polished table. I walked in, heels clicking against the marble floor, and the room fell silent. All eyes turned toward me. I carried myself with the weight of authority, not arrogance, but certainty. The kind of certainty forged in fire. The agenda was clear: restructuring, realignment, and future vision. But hidden in those pages was a decision that would determine Michael's fate. As I took my seat at the head of the table, I caught sight of him across the room. His face was pale, his shoulders stiff. He avoided my gaze, as though eye contact might break him entirely. The presentations began. Department heads spoke about profits, projections, and performance. When it came time to review operations, Michael's name appeared on the chart. His performance was average at best. Numbers didn't lie. While others exceeded expectations, he had barely met the baseline. The board discussed cuts, and his role was highlighted in red. I stayed quiet for a long time, letting the conversation swirl. Finally, one of the directors asked me directly, "Sarah, what's your perspective on this?" The room hushed, every head turning toward me. I looked at the documents in front of me, then slowly lifted my gaze to Michael. For a moment, our eyes locked. A flicker of desperation flashed across his face. "I believe in accountability," I said clearly, my voice steady. "We reward excellence, but we cannot carry those unwilling to rise to the standard we set. The company deserves better." My words landed like a hammer, and silence hung heavy in the air. Michael's face drained of color. The decision was finalized. His role would be eliminated in the upcoming restructuring. Papers were signed, and the board moved on to other business as if it were nothing more than a line item. But for Michael, it was the collapse of everything he had left. Later that day, he knocked on my office door. He looked older than I remembered. His once proud posture bent under the weight of defeat. "Please," he whispered, "don't do this. I've already lost so much. Don't take this from me, too." I leaned back in my chair, my hands folded neatly on the desk. The same desk that represented years of sacrifice, sweat, and relentless resilience. "Michael," I said softly, "when you left me, you didn't just walk away from a marriage. You walked away from a woman who would have stood by your side no matter what. You made your choice. Now, this is mine." His lips parted as though to argue, but no words came. The truth was too heavy, too undeniable. For years he had lived thinking he was the one in control, the one holding the power. Now the tables had turned. When he left my office, shoulders slumped, I didn't feel joy or triumph. What I felt was closure. A chapter of my life was finally sealed shut. The day Michael's departure was officially announced, the office buzzed with whispers. Some were surprised, others weren't. Most people had noticed his decline, the way he dragged through the halls, the missed deadlines, the spark gone from his once confident demeanor. But few knew the history that bound us, the invisible thread of past choices weaving into this moment. That afternoon, I found myself in the quiet of the executive lounge, a space lined with leather chairs and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I needed a breath, a pause before the storm outside swept me away again. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down. Moments later, the door creaked open. It was Michael. His tie was loosened, his eyes bloodshot, and his hands shook slightly as he shut the door behind him. "Sarah," he began, his voice raw. "I don't know how to say this, but I've been thinking about everything, about us, about what I threw away." He stepped closer, desperation lacing every word. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I let you go. I see you now, and I can't help but wonder, what if I had chosen differently? What if I hadn't left?" I sat in silence, watching him unravel. For years, those words would have been everything to me, but now they felt hollow. "Michael," I said softly, "regret is a heavy chain, isn't it? It drags you down, no matter how fast you try to run." My tone wasn't cruel, but it was final. He sank into the chair across from me, burying his face in his hands. "Ashley left me with nothing," he muttered. "No family, no stability, no love. I thought she was my future, but she used me. And when she was done, she walked away. And now, I've lost you too." The room grew still. Outside, the hum of the city carried on, oblivious to the collapse of one man's world. I leaned forward, my voice steady but edged with fire. "You didn't just lose me, Michael. You gave me away. You chose someone else. You chose a path that destroyed everything we had. And while you fell, I rose. Not to spite you, but because I had no other choice." His eyes lifted to meet mine, glistening with tears. "Do you hate me?" he asked, his voice breaking. I let the question hang between us before answering. "No," I said firmly. "Hate would mean you still have power over me, and you don't. Not anymore." For the first time, I saw true defeat in his expression, not just the loss of a job or a relationship, but the crushing weight of realizing the damage he could never undo. He stood slowly, his shoulders sagging as though carrying the weight of the world. "I'm sorry," he whispered one last time before walking out the door. As the door clicked shut behind him, I exhaled deeply. It wasn't revenge I felt. It was release. The chains of the past had finally broken. The next morning, sunlight spilled through my curtains, warm and golden, as though the world itself wanted to remind me that a new chapter had begun. I got ready for work with a calmness I hadn't felt in years. My reflection in the mirror no longer showed a woman weighed down by hurt or haunted by ghosts of the past. Instead, I saw strength etched in every line, resilience in every glance. When I walked into the office, people greeted me with respect and admiration. They saw me as their leader, not just because of my position, but because of how I carried myself. The whispers about Michael faded quickly, replaced by conversations about the company's bright future. He was gone, and with him, the shadow of everything he had once represented. That evening, after a long day, I visited a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street corner. The air was filled with the rich scent of coffee and the soft hum of jazz music. I sat by the window, sipping my drink, and let myself breathe. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about the past. I was thinking about the future. Young woman at the next table leaned toward me. She had been at the company only a few months, bright-eyed and eager. "Ms. Sarah," she said shyly, "I just wanted to say how inspiring you are, the way you lead, the way you never give up. It makes me believe I can get through anything." Her words touched me deeply. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "You can," I told her gently. "Life will test you, but you'll come out stronger if you don't give up on yourself." Walking home that night, city lights twinkling around me, I thought about all the years I had spent grieving over Michael's betrayal. And now, here I was, living proof that even the deepest wounds could heal. I wasn't defined by being the woman he left behind. I was defined by the woman I chose to become after he left. For the first time, I felt truly free. Not because Michael was gone, but because I had reclaimed every part of myself he once tried to take. Weeks turned into months, and the memory of Michael became nothing more than a faint echo in the halls of my past. His presence no longer haunted me. His absence no longer hurt me. What remained was a deep sense of peace, the kind that comes only after weathering a storm and realizing you not only survived but thrived. One evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of tea in hand, the city glowing beneath the fading sunset. I thought about the journey I had taken, from being abandoned at my lowest to building a life filled with strength, dignity, and purpose. Life had not been kind, but it had been fair. It gave me lessons, it gave me pain, and in the end, it gave me the chance to rise. I realized then that Michael's choices had never truly defined me. What defined me was how I responded to them. His betrayal was just the fire that forged me into steel. His absence created the space for me to become everything I was meant to be. To anyone listening to my story, remember this: heartbreak will come. Betrayal will sting. People you love may walk away, leaving you shattered, but you have the power to rebuild, to rise, to become greater than you ever imagined. Do not let someone else's weakness determine your worth. Leaned back in my chair, the night air cool against my skin, and I smiled. Not because I won, but because I was free. Truly free. And if you've stayed with me through this journey, I want to thank you. Your support means more than words can ever say. Don't forget to subscribe and like, because together we'll continue sharing stories that remind us all of the strength we carry inside.